Before we get started, I'd like to show you what we're aiming for. I'm hoping that you are confident enough with uh, this kind of cloth work to be able to start designing your own composition using a Paris ground graph paper. The sampler that I made, I separated with a row of hexagons each. So each shape had its own ring pair, and then I separated the shapes with another row of hexagons between them. Now that was just an impulse decision. These shapes could touch, they could share a ring pair, and they could also overlap. You could, for instance, move this shape right next to that one and they only share a pin row, and then the big ring pair surrounding them, which would then mean that when you indicate the outgoing pairs of the one shape, they would become the incoming pairs of the new shape. And you'd plot the one first before the other so as not to get overwhelmed or confused. The lace that can be made from this, so this is a fairly severe geometric application of Binche, but I'm hoping that it could be a stepping stone towards more elaborate designs and freeform designs using multiple angles and not just sticking to the grid. So essentially this is a simplified version of Binche or Flanders, because the clothwork of the two techniques are basically the same. And I hope you enjoy experimenting with this. I can show you how it works up. Just focus. Okay. The Paris ground makes the ring pair almost invisible. All that you see is a row of holes surrounding it. On larger areas, you can plot in more elaborate grounds, and then the ring pairs would be a little bit more visible. So the forms, although they look quite blocky and mechanical on the pricking, really just highlights the outline of the shape. The shape gets created by the contour pair, and the contour pair follows a gentler curve, and that is how you arrive at these lovely rounded shapes. The sampler was kindly made by my lace teacher and dear friend, Charlotte Keane. And she interpreted the pattern. Instead of just working a whole stitch for the Paris ground, she worked in a chaotic ground, so offsetting a half stitch with a whole stitch. In a future project, I think I would try to aim to get a little bit more dynamics, visual dynamics going, and contrasts. This is a very even repeat pattern, and it's quite regular. But as far as the first attempt goes, I think it's interesting. So what you would need to do to design your own piece is the Paris ground graph paper, of course. Make sure that you design with it with no horizontal lines, because otherwise you'd need to work with a strange weaver that goes to and fro, and that's impossible to do the to get the elaborate cloth work that you want. So make sure that the arrangement of the graph paper is good, and that you have vertical lines instead of horizontal ones. So just a grid of diagonal lines, and then rows of vertical lines. one way to start designing is to simply start plotting shapes using the middle of the hexagon as the pinpoint. Giving the shape a ring pair. And then to make the to tidy up the shape so that you can figure out the cloth work, the thread movement more easily. I use some whiteout to erase the grid lines just on the inside of the shape. If you work a little bit more carefully than I, then you can actually leave stubs already. I like to draw mine in anyway because they do change direction. They don't keep that diagonal of the grid always. And then once your design sheet is filled up with shapes like these, make a color photocopy of it so that you don't deal with the texture of the whiteout when you start drawing out the lines. A second option, and do remember that you can also draw straight lines, shapes beginning with a horizontal starts. Is to draw the ring pair first. Let's rather just end it like that. And then this actually gives you a little bit more freedom in your pin placement because you have a little bit more room if you move the pins just slightly more into the corners. So technically we're going to have a pin there as well because we need a pair going in to make that pair. Yes. Moving the pin markings just a little bit closer to the ring pair, giving you more room to plot out the thread movements. Now remember, the workaround for a straight line is technically you have that zigzag and you're simply moving that pin up. So the pin that would have been at that hexagon now moves up. If you like working with a craft knife more than you do whiteout, You can also just plot in your outlines first, finish the design of ring pairs, and then cut out with a craft knife all the shapes, put it on white paper, and then make a photocopy of it. For my next shape, I want to try that. If you want to be adventurous, this shape could also be made as a conjoined shape, just separated with these pin lines, which would mean that one pin would have to come closer to that corner to support the ring pairs. Same with that one. Let's tidy things up a bit. Just show you what I mean, because you want this ring pair would probably come in from the shape somewhere around there, whereas that trail, that ring pair would probably be made over there. Which then means that both are actually supported with these two pins. So that pin placement was actually fine. Let's just double check the top. This ring pair would be made with a weaver being thrown out. And it would probably into the shape like that, and then it would need some support with the pen. So that pen would have moved up a little, but just to create that support. I would need a pair to make that ring pair and a pair to make that ring pair. And the same here. And the same here. Okay, while I'm on this journey, might as well. So the stubs that you would draw in at the shared line would be pair surrounding every pin. Oh, and remember the straight line workaround. I'm going to make a copy of this so that it's easier to trace out in pencil the thread movements. Okay, I've made a photocopy of the first. Now I have a smooth surface on which to plot out the thread movements. And now I hope it becomes clear the reason why I'm suggesting you color code the incoming pairs and the outgoing pairs, because it gets a bit tricky with more complex shapes. Outgoing, 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 incoming, incoming. I missed one there. Incoming, incoming. This is incoming of the first shape, the second shape. Incoming, outgoing, incoming, outgoing, 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 incoming, incoming. And once you have done that, then you can double check whether you have an equal amount of incoming and outgoing pairs. So count the green stubs, count the red stubs, and compare them. On my practice round, I realized that I had a mistake, and I realized the way to check then to find the mistake is to double check that each pin has two lines surrounding it, or two threads surrounding each pin, or two pairs between every pin. And I missed that pair over there. If I were to isolate this shape, the topmost pin needs two pairs surrounding it, and I didn't have that line. And then start reasoning out the thread movements as you would for any other compound shape. Start at the top and make a weaver. So if this were a small snowflake arrangement, I'd ignore these two and make a weaver from that incoming pair. becomes a contour pair, and it weaves through all the incoming pairs. Then it seems a little bit too low to start the next weaver there. I'm just going to grab one of these two and make the weaver there. The second weaver also becomes a contour pair, so it curves around the shape. Then surely I can take this incoming pair. You'd want to throw it out there, but you see that is green, so you actually just have to catch that incoming pair and abandon it as a passive, which then gives you your next weaver. Can easily be thrown out there. You need to make a returning weaver, so you ignore the contour pair. Thrown out a weaver, so you want to throw out that passive too, ignoring the contour pair, thrown out passive, new weaver. And now that weaver can exit easily on that side. Ignoring the contour pair, making a new weaver and a passive. The passive gets thrown out. I think this is the last weaver of the shape. It's actually a little bit tight here. Let's the contour pair on that side exit first. Throwing out a passive because I don't have space. Good. Things are getting a little bit snug. Now we need to make a pair for the trail. trail, leaving us with a pair to start working the trail with. And once you have the two passives of the trail available, that's nice and easy. I made a mistake here. This is an incoming pair. Since this trail, this passive of the trail is right on the edge, it could become the contour pair. On that side, and this incoming pair is high. If I were to turn this one into a weaver, there'd be quite a high space there. So I'm going to take this pair in as a weaver 2. Almost activating that pair and that pair as the weaver passive combo. And then the rest is straightforward. Green to red, green to red. There's really only enough space for 2 more weavers, I think, so let's throw out the one contour pair. And the other. Tidying up the cloth work is fun. I would of course retrace this just to get rid of these colored marks too, because they are really just a tool to help you make sure that you have all the threads accounted for. Okay, one down. Next one. Now perhaps it is good to just ignore that first motif. These are the incoming pairs of this motif. You don't need to worry about what happened there at all. You have your available pairs. Just before we wrap up this workshop, I just want to show you one more thing. I know this isn't a workshop about grounds, but you've practiced so many of these that I just have to show you how to plot them in on this graph paper too. A large snowflake if you remember, is a circle of 6 hexagons. And just a plain snowflake ground, the corners share a pin, which means that the next snowflake below starts with that pin. And since their corners touch, it means that would be the next snowflake. And to help you plot them out, you can just lightly plot these in this way. A second arrangement of snowflakes, if you want to add in a ring pair, ring-paired snowflakes, then you offset the snowflake. Maybe it's best to draw in the actual ring pairs, yes. Just a 2 by 2 hexagon shape with the corners touching. And finally, small snowflakes, a slightly less obvious workaround. On the vertical lines, there are these little triangles, and the vertical line of each triangle, if you put a pin marking, you would have an arrangement with which you can work a small snowflake. And remember, small snowflakes are offset like a chessboard, checkerboard. And then if you use this as the basis to just add in the snowflake variations that you drew in, you might arrive at something like this. As if by magic, there'll always be a pair available when you need it. And to make the ring-paired snowflakes give it a nice round curve, you just turn that crossing on the graph paper into a drop stitch. So instead of having the ring pairs of each snowflake exchange, they ignore each other, which will give you a nice flowy ring-paired snowflake. And that is what I have for you. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and I would love to see what you've come up with. So please show me sometime. My email address is pierre.fouchier@gmail.com. Thanks again. I hope to see you again sometime soon.